Pete Buttigieg joins us now for his first interview since ending that historic campaign. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Good to be with you.
Sunday, Bernie Sanders said that you ran a solid campaign, but he was disappointed that you allowed the establishment to pressure you to get out of the race. What kind of a pressure did you feel from the establishment?
Well, I felt the pressure of voters making a decision. We ran 4 contests. I'm proud of the campaign we ran, but by the time we'd run our 4th race, it was clear that the numbers weren't there. Getting into this race was never just about becoming president. For us, it was about working to unify the party in the country, and it was about making sure that we defeat Donald Trump. And there came a point where I realized that the best thing I could do in the service of those goals was to step aside and to support Vice President Biden.
The establishment didn't pressure you to get out.
No, look, the kind of people who run for president of the United States are the kind of people who make their own decisions, and it was my decision.
Let's talk about Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin for a moment, because in 2016, about 215,000 voters voted for Bernie Sanders in the spring, but switched their support to Donald Trump in the fall, helping him become president of the United States. How does Joe Biden prevent that from happening this time if he gets the nomination?
Well, I think what's most important is to connect with the reality that a lot of people are experiencing. My part of Indiana is very similar to those parts of Michigan and Ohio and Pennsylvania where, we've been told that the economy is great. And yet right now we're seeing so many families trying to get ahead. When your pay does go up, it doesn't keep up with the cost of higher education, the cost of housing, the cost of prescription drugs, and there need to be solutions for that. But that is exactly what Vice President Biden has been focused on for his entire career and definitely now. So, I think what's going to be most important is to connect with people where they are and to try to cut through the political noise, which I think a lot of folks voted the way they did last time around, just almost to burn the house down, just out of frustration with everything. Now the house is on fire. And the question is, what are we going to do to heal this country and to move it forward?
One of the reasons that you struggled mightily during the campaign, this is something that you and I talked about almost a year ago, your inability to connect with black and brown voters in the Democratic Party. You were the first major candidate to actually roll out their plan to address some racial inequalities in this country. You spent a lot of time in those communities, but you couldn't break through. Was it the message or was it the messenger?
Well, I think one thing that you need is time, especially for communities that have felt passed over, that have felt taken for granted. And, of course, I had a matter of months rather than years or decades to introduce ourselves. And what I found and what a lot of competitors found was that Joe Biden's commanding advantage, especially with black voters, especially in the South, was something that had been earned over years and over decades. I think it's part of how he's going to put together the coalition that's going to take back the White House. But it was also very difficult to compete with.
Despite a crowded field that included the first openly gay candidate, a Hispanic man, several women, including a black woman, an Asian man, now your party is left with 2 white guys in their late 70s. Is there an obligation for one of them to pick a vice president from the aforementioned group?
I do think it'll be very important to have diversity on the ticket and diversity in the future cabinet.
Is there an obligation?
Yeah, I'm not going to place obligations on the future nominee, but certainly as a voter and as a Democrat, I would expect to see that kind of diversity on the ticket.
By our count, you'll be 44 in 2024, 48 in 2028. Someone did the math and said you could run for president 10 more times and still be younger than the youngest man in the race right now. What's next for you?
Well, in the immediate term, we're going to be traveling a little bit, thanking supporters, and then Chas and I are looking forward to some time away. Then we'll come back and I'll make myself useful in new ways. But we're going to have some fun first.
I was going to ask you about this because a little birdie told me you might be hosting a late night show.
Yeah, on Thursday I'm going to be guest hosting Jimmy Kimmel Live. So we're really excited for that. Lining up a great slate of guests. Sir Patrick Stewart's coming on. We're very excited about that.
Amy Klobuchar, she going to be a guest perhaps?
I'm hoping to catch up with her soon. But
you're going to do monologue and everything.
Yeah. Well, hopefully some funnier minds than mine will be doing some writing for that. But I think it's going to be fun. And, the thing about coming off a presidential campaign is you have been focused on one thing and one thing only. It's nice to be able to zoom out and just come back at life.
All right. Mayor Pete Buttigieg, good to see you.
Good to be with you.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.